Greetings and welcome to this version of Liquid Edition, What's New in Liquid Edition version 6. I am your host and instructor, Paul Mitten, freelance demo artist and trainer for Pinnacle Systems here in the beautiful southwestern United States, currently located just above Burbank, California. And with that introduction, let's get right into what is brand new in Liquid Edition version 6. Now, first of all, we are looking at the new interface, the new redesigned interface. It's a little brighter, a little fancier looking, and some of you might say a little more cartoonish looking. For those of you that have experience with Liquid Edition version 5.5 or earlier, it had a much darker and some would say more professional looking interface. And by the way, let me just come down here to my Windows Start button, go up to Programs, come over here to Liquid Edition version 6, and if I expand that out, you can see we've got two choices. I can launch Liquid Edition version 6, which is what we're looking at, or if I want to edit the old-fashioned way, with all the new features, I can open up the classic interface. And while we're talking about that, let's do that. Let's take a quick look at the differences between this interface, which is the new redesigned interface, and the classic version of Liquid Edition version 6. So I'm going to close my Liquid Edition down. And through the magic of television, we're going to jump forward in time and open up on Liquid Edition version 6 Classic. So I come down here to my Start button, go up to Programs, come up here to and go to the classic view. And now you can see here is the classic view. It looks very similar to the version 5.5 as far as the coloring of the buttons and such. The Start button is still down here to the bottom left, and all my different tool and functionality options are over here on the left side. We shall now jump back to the new redesigned version and show you all the new features within the new interface. Alright, so here we are back in the delightful and lovely and highly fashionable new version of Liquid Edition version 6. So first of all, let's just take a look around the user interface and see what is new. First of all, let's take a look at the buttons here. And notice when I mouse over them, they change from the blue color to a lovely maroon type of purplish color. And when I mouse over them also, I still get the traditional bubble help that tells me what each button does. You can see down here in the middle left of my screen, these buttons are all turned on and they have that familiar golden glow. And that golden glow tells me when a button is selected and that button is on. For example, if I come down here and click on the Open Project Browser in Timeline, as it says there in the bubble help, it closes it because it was already open, it was on. And now that folder icon is the blue color, meaning it is off, and we don't see the project browser. Let's go ahead and open that up again. So if we're working with a single monitor on our computer, then this would be where we would store all our media. And as you can see, there's all my video files within these individual racks. But since this is an overview of what's new in Liquid Edition, this was something that was already there, so I won't get into that. Sorry if I got off on a tangent. Perhaps the biggest difference in this interface is if you take a look at the upper left corner of my screen, there's two things here. There is a standard Windows title bar indicating the name of the program and the path on my hard drive of where this project is coming from. And this is the What's New project. Very creative name there, huh? And then right below that is a standard Windows menu bar with all the drop-down menus to access all the functions of Liquid Edition version 6. However, I should point out that most of my right-click options are still there, and they are contextual based on where I'm right-clicking on the screen. So again, more flexibility in the way you work here in Liquid Edition. And then also, when I click on one of these menus, and then I come to an item that I could click on, for example, New Project, if you look down at the bottom left of my screen, there is an I, the letter I, in a blue circle, and then to the right of that in a window is Help, telling me what happens if I click on that button. Now I went to the File, New, Project option, and down in the bottom left there you can see it says creates a new project. So based on what I do here, it's telling me what will happen if I click on these individual buttons. And then while we're here in the File menu, let me just point out that now we have Manage Projects, and in Manage Projects we have Backup Project and Restore Project. Something that people have been asking for quite a while now. So you can see that Pinnacle is listening to your requests. And then over here we have Input Wizards and Output Wizards. And these are wizards to guide you through the basic steps to make things happen. And let me point out that if you want to learn how to work these individual options, check out those individual sections on this training disc. Now that we're looking back at the main window, I want to point out this red line that hopefully you can see surrounding the master viewer. And notice also that the timeline hash marks are all white. So this is indicating that I have the master viewer selected. If I hit the space bar on my keyboard, the timeline plays. Now if I move my mouse over to the source viewer, click on it, notice now there's the red border around the source viewer, and the timeline has also become white, whereas now in the master viewer the timeline is black. So let me rewind here so my play line is at the head. I hit the space bar on my keyboard, and now the source viewer plays. Now this is a still JPEG, as you can see up here in the window. But the point I'm making here is, based on where the red line is surrounding the viewer, it's indicating which window is active. And if we take a look at our keyboard map down in the bottom right here, and click on Timeline Master Viewer, come up here. I believe this was the same in Liquid Edition 5.5. The H button will switch between the master viewer and source viewer. So hitting my H button on my keyboard, you can see the red line is jumping from the master viewer over to the source viewer and back again. And notice what happens with the timeline down here as well as on my actual timeline. Now when the source viewer is active, my timeline is black. When I hit H again, my red window is around the master viewer, and now my timeline is white. Just by looking at the screen, you can tell which window is active. And when you hit the space bar to play, whichever window is active is the one that's going to play. So a couple more things I wanted to mention here on the user interface. The buttons, you can see, do stand out more than they used to from the background gray. Of course, gray and blue definitely are different. But in the classic view, they have more of a three-dimensional look, as if they're sticking out from the background and they're lit from one side. So just a couple points on that. Also, let's take a look at the project browser just a little bit more. Let me switch to something a little more picturesque, like Sequoia National Park. And what we have now, instead of a title window that tells me which rack I'm sitting on, I can pretty much tell that by just looking here. They've split the All Library button into two tabs now. So I can switch just like that to my library, and if I go to PyCon view, there's all my effects editors, or my clip effects editors. And if I go back to the All button, then that takes me to my rack tree structure. And also, I can turn off this window by coming up here to the Show Rack Tree button. And now I'm just looking at the contents of the particular rack that I have selected at the time. So this gives me a little more room, and this is a really handy feature if I am just working with a single monitor. Now I can give myself a little more room, and if I right-click in here and change the PyCon view to say Small, now I've got 2 rows of PyCons, and now if I expand this window to the right just a hair, now I've got 3 rows. Or if I wanted to maximize the usage here, I'll drag it back over, and there's 2 rows. So now I've got a lot more contents within the same space. And if I needed to get back to that tree, well, I need to expand this out just a little bit more. And there's my Show Rack Tree. So a couple different things. You can still right-click on the All button, by the way, and get into the working project. And in this particular system, I haven't opened up any other projects. Had I done that, there would be a list of all the other projects I had recently opened. And I could jump into the project browser of those other projects recently opened, borrow clips by cutting, come back here to the working project, and then come into this rack and paste what I grabbed from that other project without actually opening up the other project. But those are tips and tricks that you learn on my full training DVD set, not the overview of what's new, because that isn't really new. Also, you can see that the name column over here is a little bit wider than it used to be. I'm not really sure why they did that, but they did. And then coming down below that, you can also see that the zoom control has a lot more steps on it, so it's a lot more precise in the zoom levels. You've got a lot more variety of the levels of zoom you can go to just by dragging here, or the up and down arrow key on your keyboard. I'll move my mouse away. You can see I'm zooming in and out with my keyboard shortcut buttons instead of my mouse. And then finally, these purple lines here on my clips represent filters. In that case, Shards GPU, which is a new effect that we'll take a look at, but it makes it a lot easier to right-click and go into edit mode on the particular effects we have applied to clips. So the purple lines now are a little bit thicker And of course you can see I'm looking at about 5 layers here with an empty track in the middle, and I've got these tracks made smaller. If I right click on name, come down to track height, I can make those a little bit bigger. And now there's the little buttons I can double click on to launch the particular editor that I need to get into that's already applied to this particular clip. Let's come up here to the upper left corner and take a look at the input wizard just to see what the choices are here. So the first choice here is to capture from a video device such as a mini DV camera or VHS deck through my breakout box or FireWire connection. And this is going to guide me through the basic steps to set up recording from that device and eventually take me to the logging tool. More on that in the input wizard section. So we'll just race through here and just talk about what's available. We can now import a studio project from Studio 9 Plus only. You have to have Studio 9 Plus and use the export project option to be able to import it here using this option. Moving down the list, we can search and import video and audio from our computer, finding files that are on my hard drives or on a network on other computers. So that's a nice little feature. And then down here, we can import media files that are already on my computer. So this is a search option, and then this takes me straight to the import. Down here, we can import audio and music. Next option is still pictures, graphics, and titles. And then this will take us straight to the create a title. And the input wizard is a really handy tool set for those of you that are brand new to Liquid Edition version 6 and you've never used Liquid before. These wizards will guide you through the basic steps and make your work more productive and help you avoid costly and time-consuming errors. So again, more on that later in its own individual section. Let's just quickly take a look at the output wizard. And there's 3 choices here. There's record to tape, and this is basically the opposite of capturing our footage from videotape. And we've got the option here to go out to a DV camera or VCR. The next option is burn to a DVD or a VCD or a CD. So this will guide us through the options available to us in going out to a disk. And then finally, we can save as a file, such as a Windows media file, QuickTime Movie, or other AVI type files straight to our hard drive. So again, check out the input and output wizard section of this training tutorial for more information on how each one of these functions work. Now, having talked about that, we do have this little TV icon down here. If I click on that, you can see I got 2 choices for my output of Liquid. I can have none, so basically my video is contained within the computer. Or if I wanted to go out through a 1394 FireWire device, such as my DV camera or my Movie Box DV breakout box, if I chose this, then my output of my master viewer is going out to that DV device, and then I could take that to my TV screen. Now the only downside is if I have anything on the timeline that has to be rendered, I'm not going to see that on my television until it has been rendered. However, if you purchase the new Liquid Edition 6.0 Pro breakout box, that's going to give you real-time output of all your unrendered effects to your TV screen. Pretty exciting. One other thing that strikes me down here is if I click on my audio tool, you can see now all the gray space that used to be around the audio tool is gone, and they've trimmed it down so it fits quite nicely here in the middle of my screen. So as I play back my video, I have on-screen monitoring. And the buttons that this covers up, the overwrite film style mode button and the insert source into master, I generally use the keyboard equivalents to this, so it doesn't really matter if I have my audio tool covering that up.